We live in a world where strength is often defined by how well we can hide our emotions, suppress our fears, and present a flawless version of ourselves. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is seen as something to be avoided, a sign of fragility or inadequacy. But here's the truth: vulnerability is not a weakness. It is the birthplace of courage, empathy, and true connection. When we let go of the need to appear perfect, we open ourselves to a depth of experience that is otherwise unreachable. Think about the people in your life who have truly impacted you. Chances are, it wasn't their perfection that left an impression, it was their willingness to be real, to share their struggles, and to be human. Vulnerability creates a space where authenticity can flourish, and it is through authenticity that we form meaningful connections. In the rush to succeed or meet societal expectations, we often wear masks. These masks protect us from judgment and rejection, but they also isolate us. Behind the facade, we feel unseen, unheard, and alone. This isolation can take a toll on our mental health, leading to anxiety, depression, and a sense of disconnection from ourselves and others. By embracing vulnerability, we take the first step toward shedding those masks and reclaiming our mental and emotional well-being. Imagine a world where people felt safe to express their true selves without fear of ridicule. Vulnerability allows us to create that world, one conversation, one relationship, one moment at a time. It invites others to drop their guard and be real with us. It shows that we are not alone in our struggles and that imperfection is not only acceptable, it is what makes us human. For years, research in psychology and mental health has reinforced the power of vulnerability. Dr. Brené Brown, a leading voice on this topic, famously said, "Vulnerability is the core, the heart, the center of meaningful human experiences." Her work reveals that vulnerability is essential for building trust, fostering empathy, and experiencing genuine joy. It's through vulnerability that we allow ourselves to feel deeply, love fully, and live authentically. The truth is, being vulnerable takes courage. It means showing up even when we don't have all the answers. It means admitting that we're struggling or that we need help. And yes, it means risking rejection or disappointment. But the rewards far outweigh the risks. Vulnerability is the key to emotional freedom. It releases us from the burden of perfection and opens the door to self-acceptance. Vulnerability also teaches us resilience. When we allow ourselves to be seen, we may experience setbacks or criticisms, but we learn to rise again. Each time we choose to be real, we grow stronger, more self-aware, and more capable of facing life's challenges with grace. In this journey of understanding vulnerability, it's important to recognize that being vulnerable doesn't mean exposing every aspect of our lives to everyone we meet. It's about being intentional, choosing the right people and the right moments to share our truths. Vulnerability requires boundaries and discernment, but when shared with the right people, it can be transformative. By embracing vulnerability, we create space for healing. We learn to let go of shame, guilt, and the fear of judgment. We begin to see ourselves as whole, worthy, and deserving of love and connection, just as we are. And in doing so, we inspire others to do the same. The journey toward embracing vulnerability is not easy, but it is worth it. It starts with small, intentional steps, choosing to share a struggle with a trusted friend, admitting when we're overwhelmed, or simply allowing ourselves to feel deeply without judgment. These moments of courage, though seemingly small, have the power to reshape our lives and strengthen our relationships. Vulnerability is strength in its purest form. It's the strength to be real, to let go of the need for perfection, and to embrace the messy, beautiful truth of what it means to be human. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore how vulnerability can transform different areas of our lives, from our mental health to our relationships, our careers, and our sense of purpose. Together, we'll discover the power of being real and the unshakable strength that comes from embracing our authentic selves. The fear of vulnerability is deeply ingrained in us. From an early age, we are taught to be strong and keep it together. This conditioning leads many to associate vulnerability with failure or inadequacy. But what if we reframe our understanding? What if vulnerability is not a liability but a strength, a bridge connecting us to others and to ourselves? Consider how vulnerability impacts relationships. Think about the moments that brought you closer to someone. It wasn't the times when everything was perfect but rather the times when you shared your fears, dreams, or doubts. Vulnerability creates intimacy because it is an act of trust. When we allow someone to see us as we are, without pretense or facade, we are saying, "I trust you to hold this part of me." But here's the challenge: vulnerability feels risky. It exposes us to potential rejection, criticism, or misunderstanding. However, avoiding vulnerability comes with its own cost. When we hide behind walls of perfection, we also block out love, connection, and joy. To live fully, we must take the risk of being seen. In the workplace, for instance, vulnerability is often misunderstood. People assume it has no place in a professional setting, yet the most effective leaders are those who embrace it. When leaders admit their mistakes or share their challenges, they create an environment of trust and authenticity. Teams are more likely to collaborate and innovate when they feel safe to express their thoughts and take risks. Vulnerability also plays a crucial role in personal growth. When we acknowledge our fears and weaknesses, we gain clarity about what we need to work on. It allows us to confront our insecurities head-on rather than running from them. The willingness to admit, "I don't know," or "I need help," is not a sign of failure but of self-awareness and courage. In the realm of mental health, vulnerability is transformative. Suppressing our emotions can lead to anxiety, depression, and a host of other challenges. But when we share our struggles, whether with a therapist, a friend, or a support group, we begin to heal. Talking about our pain takes its power away. It reminds us that we are not alone and that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Let's look at vulnerability through a cultural lens. In the United States, where individualism and self-reliance are highly valued, vulnerability can feel counterintuitive. Many are raised to believe that admitting struggles or showing emotion is a sign of failure. Yet, the rising mental health awareness movement has started to challenge this narrative. Influential voices across media and social platforms are highlighting the importance of being open about our experiences, normalizing vulnerability, and encouraging compassion. One of the most profound effects of vulnerability is how it fosters empathy. When we see someone else's struggles, we are reminded of our own humanity. It builds a sense of connection and mutual understanding that is crucial in a society where many feel isolated. Vulnerability dissolves the illusion that we are alone in our struggles and brings us closer together. Vulnerability also empowers us to live authentically. When we stop trying to meet impossible standards, we can focus on what truly matters: our passions, our values, and our relationships. Authenticity attracts people who resonate with who we are, rather than who we pretend to be. It frees us from the exhausting cycle of seeking external validation and allows us to build a life rooted in genuine connection. The path to embracing vulnerability is not without challenges. It requires us to confront our fears and let go of the need for control. But with practice, it becomes easier. Start small, share a personal story with someone you trust or admit when you're feeling overwhelmed. With each step, you'll discover that vulnerability is not something to fear but a source of incredible strength. As we continue this exploration, we'll dive deeper into how vulnerability enhances our relationships, empowers us to achieve our goals, and allows us to live a life of purpose. The journey to embracing vulnerability is a journey to embracing yourself, flaws and all. And that is the truest strength there is. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as being synonymous with weakness, but it's quite the opposite. It takes immense strength to be open about our struggles, fears, and uncertainties. This kind of openness forces us to confront the parts of ourselves we often try to hide, the imperfections, the insecurities, the pain. Yet it's in this raw, unfiltered state that we find true courage. Consider how society celebrates bravery in physical acts, running into danger to save a life, speaking out against injustice, or pursuing a challenging goal. But what about the bravery it takes to admit, I'm not okay? What about the courage to say, I need help? These moments, though quieter, are just as monumental. Vulnerability is the quiet heroism of being real in a world that often demands perfection. When we embrace vulnerability, we give ourselves permission to be human. We let go of the pressure to have it all together all the time. And in doing so, we inspire others to do the same. There's a ripple effect to vulnerability. When one person dares to open up, it creates a safe space for others to do the same. It's as though we're saying, it's okay to not be perfect, it's okay to feel. This ripple effect is especially impactful in personal relationships. Think about how many misunderstandings could be avoided if people were willing to express their true feelings. Instead of bottling up anger or resentment, what if we could say, that hurt me, and here's why? Instead of pretending everything is fine, what if we could admit, I'm struggling right now? Vulnerability isn't about placing blame or seeking pity, it's about being honest, both with ourselves and with others. Research in psychology supports the idea that vulnerability strengthens relationships. Studies have shown that couples who openly discuss their fears and insecurities are more likely to build lasting connections. Vulnerability allows us to see and be seen, to understand and be understood. It deepens the bond between individuals by fostering trust and empathy. In friendships, vulnerability is equally transformative. Think about the moments when a friend shared something deeply personal with you. Didn't it make you feel closer to them? Vulnerability bridges the gap between acquaintances and true friends. It allows for deeper connections that go beyond surface-level interactions. But embracing vulnerability isn't just about improving relationships with others, it's also about improving our relationship with ourselves. When we're vulnerable, we confront the parts of us that we've kept hidden. This self-examination can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it's necessary for growth. It's through vulnerability that we learn to accept and love ourselves as we are, imperfections and all. For many of us, the fear of vulnerability stems from a fear of judgment. We worry that if we show our true selves, people will think less of us. But here's the paradox: the more we try to hide our vulnerabilities, the more isolated we feel. When we're brave enough to be real, we often find that people don't judge us as harshly as we fear. In fact, they're more likely to respect and admire our authenticity. In the context of mental health, vulnerability is a game changer. Talking openly about our struggles breaks the stigma surrounding mental illness. It normalizes the idea that it's okay to not be okay. By sharing our experiences, we not only lighten our own burden but also encourage others to seek help when they need it. Vulnerability has the power to save lives. To live a life of vulnerability is to live a life of freedom. It frees us from the exhausting need to pretend, to perform, to meet impossible standards. It allows us to focus on what truly matters: our passions, our relationships, and our well-being. Vulnerability is not the enemy, it is the key to unlocking our fullest potential. As we continue this journey, we'll explore how vulnerability impacts specific areas of life, our careers, our mental health, and our sense of purpose. We'll learn how to navigate the fear of rejection, build resilience, and use vulnerability as a tool for growth. Remember, the strength to be real lies within you. It's time to embrace it. The beauty of vulnerability lies in its ability to reveal our truest selves. In a world that often values appearances over authenticity, embracing vulnerability can feel like a revolutionary act. It's about stripping away the layers of perfectionism and showing up as we are, flaws and all. This act of courage is not only liberating but also transformative. Vulnerability in the workplace is an area often overlooked. Many professionals fear that admitting a mistake or showing uncertainty will make them appear incompetent. However, the most effective leaders understand that vulnerability is a powerful leadership tool. When leaders admit their mistakes or acknowledge their limitations, they model humility and foster an environment of trust. Employees feel more comfortable sharing their own challenges, leading to better communication, collaboration, and innovation. Imagine a workplace where vulnerability is encouraged. A team member admits they're struggling with a project and receives support instead of criticism. Another shares a bold idea, even though it might not work, because they know their team values creative risks. This is the kind of environment where people thrive, where their humanity is recognized, and their contributions are valued. For those striving to climb the professional ladder, vulnerability might seem counterintuitive. The pressure to be seen as capable and confident can make it difficult to admit struggles. Yet vulnerability, when approached with intention, doesn't diminish competence, it enhances it. It shows self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and a willingness to grow, qualities that are increasingly valued in the modern workplace. Outside the professional sphere, vulnerability plays a vital role in pursuing personal goals. Whether it's starting a business, learning a new skill, or chasing a lifelong dream, vulnerability is often the first step. It requires us to take risks, confront the fear of failure, and step outside our comfort zones. Vulnerability is what allows us to say, "I don't know how this will turn out, but I'm willing to try." In relationships, vulnerability can be a game changer. Romantic partnerships, in particular, thrive on openness and honesty. When we're vulnerable with our partners, we build a foundation of trust that can withstand life's inevitable challenges. It's not about airing every insecurity or fear but about being willing to share our inner world. Vulnerability says, "I trust you enough to let you see the real me." Friendships also deepen when vulnerability is present. Surface-level conversations might sustain a casual acquaintance, but true friendship requires more. It's the late-night talks where you share your doubts, the moments of mutual support during difficult times, and the willingness to admit when you've made a mistake. Vulnerability transforms friendships into lifelines. For many, the fear of rejection is the biggest barrier to vulnerability. We hesitate to share our feelings or dreams because we fear they won't be understood or appreciated. But here's the truth, rejection is a part of life. Not everyone will respond to our vulnerability with kindness or acceptance, but that doesn't diminish its value. Each time we choose to be real, we strengthen our capacity for resilience and self-worth. In the realm of mental health, vulnerability is often the key to healing. Bottling up emotions can lead to a buildup of stress, anxiety, or depression. But when we open up, whether to a trusted friend, a family member, or a mental health professional, we begin to lighten the emotional load. Talking about our struggles doesn't make them disappear, but it makes them more manageable. It reminds us that we don't have to face them alone. Vulnerability also allows us to confront and overcome shame. Shame thrives in silence, feeding on the belief that we are unworthy or inadequate. But when we speak our shame out loud, we strip it of its power. We realize that our flaws and mistakes do not define us. We are more than our struggles, we are resilient, capable, and deserving of compassion. The act of being vulnerable is an act of self-love. It's saying to yourself, "I am worthy of being seen and heard, just as I am." This mindset shift can have a profound impact on your mental health, relationships, and overall well-being. Vulnerability doesn't mean you'll never face challenges, it means you'll face them with authenticity and courage. As we continue to explore the value of vulnerability, remember this: every time you choose to be real, you pave the way for others to do the same. You become a beacon of strength and hope in a world that desperately needs both. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is your superpower. Vulnerability is an invitation to deeper connections, not just with others but also with ourselves. It requires us to move beyond surface-level interactions and embrace the raw, unfiltered reality of our experiences. This journey isn't always comfortable, but it is profoundly rewarding. One of the most striking benefits of vulnerability is how it dismantles the walls we build around ourselves. These walls, often constructed out of fear, protect us from hurt but also keep us from experiencing joy, love, and belonging. Vulnerability is the key to unlocking these experiences. By allowing ourselves to be seen, we open the door to authentic relationships and emotional fulfillment. Take the example of friendships. Many of us have acquaintances with whom we share laughter and good times, but few true friends who know our deepest struggles and dreams. Vulnerability is what transforms acquaintances into lifelong friends. When you're willing to share your fears, insecurities, or even failures, you give others permission to do the same. These shared moments create bonds that are unbreakable. In romantic relationships, vulnerability is even more critical. A partnership built on vulnerability is one where both individuals feel safe to express their emotions, desires, and needs. It fosters trust, the cornerstone of any lasting relationship. Without vulnerability, misunderstandings fester, and emotional distance grows. But with it, couples navigate life's challenges with a sense of unity and resilience. The fear of judgment often holds us back from being vulnerable. We worry that our imperfections will be met with criticism or rejection. Yet, the reality is often the opposite. When we show our true selves, we become more relatable. Our imperfections make us human, and our willingness to share them inspires others to do the same. Vulnerability bridges the gap between people, reminding us that we're all in this together. Vulnerability also plays a crucial role in self-discovery. By acknowledging our fears and insecurities, we gain insight into the areas where we need growth. This process is not about dwelling on our weaknesses but about understanding them so we can work through them. Vulnerability shines a light on the parts of ourselves we've kept hidden, enabling us to grow into our full potential. In the realm of mental health, embracing vulnerability can be transformative. Many people struggle in silence, fearing that admitting their struggles will make them appear weak. But seeking help is one of the strongest things you can do. Whether it's talking to a trusted friend, family member, or therapist, opening up about your challenges is a powerful step toward healing. It's a way of saying, I'm worthy of support. Vulnerability also teaches us how to be compassionate, not just toward others but toward ourselves. Many of us are our own harshest critics, holding ourselves to impossible standards and berating ourselves when we fall short. Vulnerability reminds us that it's okay to make mistakes, to feel deeply, and to struggle. It's a reminder that we're only human and that humanity is something to be embraced, not hidden. The workplace is another arena where vulnerability is often misunderstood. Many believe that showing vulnerability at work undermines their authority or competence. But the best leaders are those who embrace vulnerability. They admit when they're wrong, ask for input from their teams, and are open about their challenges. This kind of leadership fosters trust and loyalty, creating a positive and productive work environment. For those pursuing personal or professional goals, vulnerability is a necessary companion. It takes courage to chase a dream, especially when success is uncertain. Vulnerability allows us to take risks, to fail, and to learn from our failures. It reminds us that the journey is just as important as the destination and that growth often comes from the moments when we step outside our comfort zones. Living vulnerably doesn't mean you'll never face rejection or disappointment. But it does mean you'll live authentically, without the burden of pretending to be someone you're not. Vulnerability is about showing up as your true self, even when it feels uncomfortable or risky. And in doing so, you inspire others to do the same. As we move forward, remember that vulnerability is not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about embracing your imperfections, owning your story, and showing up for your life with courage and authenticity. The strength to be vulnerable lies within you, and it's a strength that can transform your life in ways you never imagined. The journey of vulnerability is not a straight path, it's a winding road filled with moments of courage, doubt, and revelation. Each step forward deepens your understanding of yourself and the connections you build with others. Vulnerability requires patience and perseverance, but the rewards are worth the effort. One of the most powerful lessons vulnerability teaches us is that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. Society often glorifies independence and self-reliance, making it seem as though asking for help is a sign of weakness. But in reality, seeking support is one of the bravest acts of self-care. Vulnerability allows us to reach out to others and say, I need you. It reminds us that we're not meant to go through life in isolation. The support we find through vulnerability comes in many forms. It might be a friend who listens without judgment, a mentor who shares valuable insights, or a professional who guides us through difficult emotions. Opening up about our struggles can feel intimidating at first, but it's through these moments of honesty that we build a network of understanding and care. This act of reaching out doesn't just help us, it also strengthens the people around us. When we allow others to see our vulnerability, we create opportunities for them to show empathy, compassion, and kindness. In doing so, we foster a culture of openness and mutual support that benefits everyone involved. Vulnerability is also a key ingredient in building resilience. Life is filled with unexpected challenges, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed when things don't go as planned. But when we embrace vulnerability, we learn to face adversity with courage. Vulnerability doesn't mean ignoring difficulties, it means acknowledging them and finding the strength to navigate through them. Consider how vulnerability can transform the way we approach failure. Instead of viewing failure as a reflection of our worth, we can see it as an opportunity for growth. Vulnerability allows us to admit when we've made mistakes and learn from them without shame. It reminds us that failure is not the end, it's a stepping stone on the path to success. In relationships, vulnerability can heal wounds and build bridges. Misunderstandings and conflicts often arise when people are unwilling to share their true feelings. Vulnerability breaks down these barriers by encouraging honest communication. When we're willing to say, "This hurt me," or "I'm sorry," we open the door to forgiveness and reconciliation. This kind of openness requires humility. It's not always easy to admit when we've been wrong or when we've been hurt. But vulnerability teaches us that humility is not a weakness, it's a strength. It's the ability to prioritize the health of a relationship over our ego, to value connection over being right. Vulnerability also encourages us to live with intention. It invites us to examine our values, our dreams, and the things that truly matter. By being honest with ourselves, we gain clarity about the life we want to create. Vulnerability helps us align our actions with our authentic selves, leading to greater fulfillment and purpose. In the digital age, where social media often showcases curated perfection, vulnerability is more important than ever. It's easy to fall into the trap of comparing our behind-the-scenes struggles to someone else's highlight reel. But when we choose vulnerability, we break free from the pressure to compete or conform. We remind ourselves and others that it's okay to be imperfect, that our worth is not defined by likes, shares, or followers. Vulnerability is a gift we give not only to ourselves but to the world. It's an invitation to be real, to connect, and to grow. It's a reminder that strength comes from showing up, even when it feels uncomfortable or scary. And most importantly, it's a declaration of self-worth, a statement that says, "I am enough, just as I am." As we continue this exploration, keep in mind that vulnerability is not a destination, it's a practice. It's something we cultivate every day, in big moments and small. Each time you choose to be real, you take a step toward living a more authentic, meaningful life. And in doing so, you inspire others to do the same. Vulnerability isn't a one-time act, it's a way of living. Each day offers opportunities to practice being real, whether in your conversations, your decisions, or your reflections. These small moments of vulnerability build over time, creating a life rooted in authenticity and courage. One area where vulnerability has profound impact is in how we set boundaries. Many people associate vulnerability with being overly open or exposed, but the opposite is true. Vulnerability requires us to understand and communicate our limits. It's about saying, "This is what I can offer, and this is what I need," without fear of judgment or rejection. Setting boundaries can be challenging, especially if you've spent much of your life prioritizing others over yourself. It can feel selfish or uncomfortable at first, but it's an essential part of self-care. When you establish clear boundaries, you protect your energy and create space for meaningful connections. Vulnerability is what enables you to have those tough conversations and stand firm in your values. Another transformative aspect of vulnerability is its role in creativity. Whether you're an artist, a writer, a musician, or simply someone who loves to create, vulnerability is at the heart of your work. To share your creativity with the world is to say, "This is a piece of me." It's an act of courage that invites others into your inner world. Creative vulnerability can be daunting. The fear of criticism or failure often holds people back from expressing their ideas. But vulnerability reminds us that perfection isn't the goal, authenticity is. When you create from a place of honesty, your work resonates with others in ways that polished perfection never could. It's the imperfections, the raw edges, that make your creations uniquely yours. Vulnerability also helps us face uncertainty. Life is unpredictable, and no amount of planning can shield us from its twists and turns. Vulnerability is what allows us to embrace the unknown with grace. It's about acknowledging our fears without letting them paralyze us, about moving forward even when the outcome is uncertain. Think about the moments in your life when you took a leap of faith. Maybe it was starting a new job, moving to a new city, or saying, "I love you," for the first time. Each of these moments required vulnerability, the willingness to take a risk and trust that it would lead to growth. Even when things didn't go as planned, the act of taking that leap taught you something valuable about yourself. In the context of mental health, vulnerability is a pathway to healing. Many people struggle with feelings of shame, guilt, or unworthiness, often stemming from past experiences or societal pressures. Vulnerability allows us to confront these feelings head-on. By sharing our struggles with someone we trust, we begin to break the cycle of silence that keeps us trapped. Therapists often talk about the importance of naming the emotion. When we name what we're feeling, whether it's sadness, anger, fear, or shame, we take the first step toward understanding and processing it. Vulnerability is what allows us to name our emotions and seek the support we need to work through them. Vulnerability also helps us cultivate gratitude. When we're real about our struggles, we develop a deeper appreciation for the moments of joy and connection in our lives. Gratitude and vulnerability go hand in hand, reminding us to celebrate the beauty in imperfection and the strength in authenticity. This practice of embracing vulnerability extends to how we view ourselves. Many of us are kinder to others than we are to ourselves, holding ourselves to impossible standards while offering compassion to everyone else. Vulnerability invites us to turn that compassion inward. It's about recognizing our humanity and treating ourselves with the same kindness we would offer a friend. As you reflect on vulnerability in your own life, consider the ways it has shaped you. What moments of courage have led to growth? What relationships have deepened because you chose to be real? Each of these experiences is a testament to the power of vulnerability, the strength to be seen, to be heard, and to be human. The journey doesn't end here. Vulnerability is a lifelong practice, one that requires intention and effort. But with each step, you move closer to a life of authenticity, connection, and purpose. The strength to be real is within you. Embrace it. Vulnerability teaches us that life's most meaningful moments are often born from uncertainty. When we take the risk of opening ourselves up to others, whether through love, honesty, or creativity, we step into a space where true connection can thrive. But this space is not without challenges. Vulnerability requires courage, persistence, and a willingness to grow. One of the most significant challenges of vulnerability is facing rejection. Whether it's a job application that didn't work out, a relationship that ended, or an idea that wasn't well received, rejection stings. It's a natural response to want to protect ourselves from this pain by avoiding situations where rejection is possible. But in doing so, we miss out on the opportunities that come with taking risks. Rejection is not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of circumstances. Vulnerability helps you see rejection not as an end but as a stepping stone. Every no you encounter brings you closer to the right yes. It's through these experiences that you build resilience and learn more about what aligns with your values and goals. Vulnerability also invites us to confront the narratives we tell ourselves. Many of us carry stories in our minds about why we're not good enough, stories rooted in past experiences, societal expectations, or fear of failure. These stories can be incredibly limiting, preventing us from fully embracing who we are and what we're capable of achieving. When you choose vulnerability, you challenge these narratives. You remind yourself that you are not defined by your mistakes or shortcomings. You give yourself permission to rewrite your story, one rooted in self-acceptance and possibility. This shift in perspective can be life-changing, opening doors to opportunities and relationships you may have once thought were out of reach. The fear of vulnerability often stems from a desire to maintain control. We want to manage how others perceive us, to shield ourselves from judgment, and to avoid feeling exposed. But the irony is that control is an illusion. Life is unpredictable, and no amount of effort can guarantee that things will go exactly as planned. Vulnerability teaches us to let go of the need for control and embrace the freedom that comes with surrendering to life's uncertainties. In the digital age, vulnerability takes on new dimensions. Social media allows us to present carefully curated versions of our lives, often hiding the messy, imperfect reality. While there's nothing wrong with sharing highlights, it's important to recognize the value of being real. Vulnerability online doesn't mean airing every detail of your life, but it does mean being honest about the struggles and challenges that make you human. By sharing your authentic self, you create space for others to do the same. Vulnerability has the power to build communities of support and understanding, even in virtual spaces. It's a reminder that behind every screen is a person with their own fears, dreams, and stories. In parenting, vulnerability plays a critical role in building trust and connection. Many parents feel the need to appear infallible to their children, believing that showing weakness undermines authority. But vulnerability allows parents to model resilience, empathy, and self-compassion. By admitting when they're wrong, sharing their feelings, or asking for help, parents teach their children that it's okay to be human. For children, seeing their parents' vulnerability can be incredibly empowering. It shows them that they don't have to be perfect to be loved and respected. It creates a safe space for them to express their own emotions and seek guidance when they need it. Vulnerability, in this context, becomes a bridge that strengthens the parent-child bond. In leadership, vulnerability is a hallmark of great leaders. It's not about oversharing or being unprofessional but about showing authenticity. A leader who acknowledges challenges, listens to feedback, and admits when they're unsure creates a culture of trust and collaboration. Vulnerability in leadership inspires loyalty and motivates teams to work together toward shared goals. The beauty of vulnerability lies in its universality. It transcends age, culture, and background, reminding us of our shared humanity. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we connect with others on a deeper level. We find common ground in our struggles and celebrate our triumphs together. As you navigate the practice of vulnerability, remember that it's not about perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. It's about being real, even when it feels uncomfortable. And most importantly, it's about embracing yourself fully, flaws and all. Vulnerability is your superpower. Use it to create a life of authenticity, connection, and purpose. Each act of vulnerability, no matter how small, is a step toward living a life that's true to who you are. Keep stepping forward. Vulnerability is a paradox in itself. While it feels like exposing our weakest parts, it simultaneously connects us to our greatest strengths. The ability to admit fear, to face uncertainty, and to seek help when needed are not signs of failure, they are powerful affirmations of our humanity. Embracing vulnerability leads to a richer, more meaningful life because it allows us to experience both the highs and lows fully. One of the most profound ways vulnerability changes our lives is by deepening our emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is the ability to understand and manage our emotions while empathizing with the emotions of others. Vulnerability plays a crucial role in developing EQ because it forces us to confront our feelings honestly and navigate them effectively. When we embrace vulnerability, we become more attuned to the emotions of those around us. This heightened awareness allows us to respond with empathy and compassion, strengthening our relationships. Emotional intelligence is often a better predictor of success, both personally and professionally, than technical skills or IQ. By being vulnerable, we unlock this critical skill set and enhance our ability to thrive in various areas of life. Vulnerability also redefines success. In a society that often equates success with wealth, power, or status, vulnerability challenges us to ask, what does success truly mean to me? For many, the answer lies in living authentically, nurturing meaningful relationships, and finding purpose in everyday life. Vulnerability gives us the courage to pursue these goals, even when they don't align with societal expectations. Consider the courage it takes to leave a high-paying but unfulfilling job to chase a passion, start a business, or pursue a calling. This decision requires immense vulnerability because it involves stepping into the unknown. There's no guarantee of success, and failure is a real possibility. Yet, the reward of living a life aligned with your values and passions far outweighs the risk. Vulnerability is the force that propels you forward, even when doubt creeps in. In the context of self-belief, vulnerability is transformative. Many of us struggle with inner critics that constantly question our worth or abilities. Vulnerability allows us to acknowledge these doubts without letting them define us. It's about saying, yes, I'm scared, but I'll try anyway. This mindset shift turns fear into fuel, propelling us toward growth and achievement. Think about the heroes you admire, whether they are activists, artists, leaders, or everyday people making a difference in their communities. Their journeys are not marked by perfection but by moments of vulnerability. They dared to dream, to act, and to fail in pursuit of something greater. Vulnerability is what allowed them to persevere through challenges and ultimately succeed. On a personal level, vulnerability deepens our understanding of ourselves. It encourages self-reflection and honesty, helping us uncover our true desires, fears, and motivations. This clarity is essential for making decisions that align with our authentic selves. When we stop pretending to be who we think we should be, we free ourselves to become who we truly are. Vulnerability also teaches us gratitude. By embracing life's imperfections, we learn to appreciate its beauty. We stop chasing an idealized version of happiness and start finding joy in the present moment. Vulnerability reminds us that life's greatest treasures often come from its messiest moments, the lessons learned from failure, the strength gained through struggle, and the connections forged in shared vulnerability. In building community, vulnerability is a unifying force. When people share their stories of triumph and struggle, they create spaces where others feel seen and understood. These connections foster a sense of belonging, which is essential for mental and emotional well-being. Vulnerability breaks down barriers, allowing people from different backgrounds to come together and support one another. As we conclude this exploration of vulnerability, it's important to recognize that embracing it is an ongoing journey. There will be days when it feels impossible to be vulnerable, when the fear of judgment or rejection feels too great. But each time you choose to be real, you strengthen your capacity for courage and authenticity. Vulnerability is not about being fearless, it's about showing up despite the fear. It's about valuing connection over perfection, growth over comfort, and authenticity over approval. By embracing vulnerability, you unlock the strength to live a life of meaning, purpose, and deep connection. Remember, every time you choose vulnerability, you're not just changing your life, you're creating a ripple effect that inspires others to do the same. Together, through vulnerability, we can build a world that values empathy, compassion, and the beauty of being real. One of the most profound lessons vulnerability offers is its ability to foster resilience. Life is filled with unexpected challenges, and at times, it can feel overwhelming. Vulnerability, however, equips us to face these difficulties head-on, not by pretending we're invincible but by recognizing our strength in acknowledging the struggle. Resilience doesn't mean we don't fall, it means we get back up, and vulnerability is the hand that helps us rise. When we embrace vulnerability, we stop viewing pain or failure as enemies. Instead, we see them as teachers. Pain forces us to slow down, reflect, and recalibrate. Failure, while uncomfortable, gives us invaluable feedback. Vulnerability transforms these moments from obstacles into stepping stones, paving the way for growth and self-discovery. Think about a time in your life when you faced a significant setback. Perhaps it was a failed relationship, a missed opportunity, or a personal loss. In those moments, the natural reaction might have been to retreat, to shield yourself from further pain. But vulnerability challenges that instinct. It encourages us to lean into the discomfort and explore what it's teaching us. It's in this exploration that we find meaning, strength, and ultimately, healing. Vulnerability also reshapes the way we view courage. Many people associate courage with grand gestures or acts of heroism. But courage can be quieter. It's found in admitting you're struggling, asking for help, or daring to say what's in your heart. These small acts of bravery, rooted in vulnerability, have the power to change your life and the lives of those around you. For example, consider the workplace. A manager who admits they don't have all the answers creates an environment where innovation and collaboration thrive. Employees feel empowered to share their ideas without fear of judgment, knowing their contributions are valued. Vulnerability, in this context, becomes a catalyst for collective success. In friendships, vulnerability is the glue that holds people together. It allows us to move beyond surface-level pleasantries and into deeper, more meaningful connections. When you share your true self with a friend, your fears, dreams, and struggles, you create a bond that is both authentic and enduring. Vulnerability invites others to do the same, creating a relationship built on trust and mutual understanding. Romantic relationships, too, are transformed by vulnerability. Love requires us to take risks. It asks us to let someone see us fully, to share not just our joy but also our pain. This level of openness can feel daunting, especially if you've been hurt in the past. But vulnerability reminds us that the reward of true connection is worth the risk. It's through vulnerability that love deepens, trust grows, and relationships thrive. At its core, vulnerability is an act of self-love. It's a declaration that you are worthy of being seen and heard, just as you are. This self-acceptance creates a ripple effect, influencing every aspect of your life. When you believe in your worth, you're less likely to settle for relationships, careers, or situations that don't align with your values. Vulnerability also inspires others. When you show up authentically, you give others permission to do the same. This ripple effect extends far beyond your immediate circle, creating a culture of openness and compassion. In a world that often values appearances over substance, vulnerability is a revolutionary act. The journey toward vulnerability isn't without its challenges. There will be moments when fear and doubt creep in, when the urge to retreat feels overpowering. But remember, vulnerability isn't about eliminating fear, it's about moving forward despite it. Each step you take is a testament to your courage and resilience. As you continue to embrace vulnerability, reflect on how it's shaping your life. How has it deepened your connections? How has it strengthened your sense of self? These reflections will serve as a reminder of the power of vulnerability and its ability to transform not just your life but the lives of those around you. Vulnerability is a practice, a choice you make every day. It's about showing up, being real, and embracing the messiness of life. In doing so, you discover the beauty of authenticity and the strength that comes from being unapologetically you. Vulnerability is often likened to standing in front of a mirror, not just to see your reflection, but to confront what lies beneath the surface. It's about looking at yourself with honesty and compassion, recognizing your flaws, strengths, fears, and dreams. This self-awareness is where personal growth begins, and vulnerability is the catalyst for that transformation. One of the most powerful aspects of vulnerability is its ability to dismantle shame. Shame thrives in secrecy, feeding on the belief that we are unworthy because of our mistakes or imperfections. Vulnerability, however, shines a light on shame, stripping it of its power. By speaking about our struggles or owning our past, we reclaim our narrative and remind ourselves that we are more than the sum of our missteps. This act of reclaiming your story is not just liberating, it's empowering. When you're vulnerable, you take control of your narrative. You decide how your experiences shape you, rather than letting fear or shame dictate your life. It's a way of saying, yes, I've faced challenges, but I'm still here. I'm still growing. Vulnerability also fosters a deep sense of authenticity. It allows you to live in alignment with your values and aspirations, free from the constraints of societal expectations. When you're honest about who you are and what matters to you, you attract people and opportunities that resonate with your true self. Authenticity becomes a magnet for meaningful relationships and fulfilling experiences. However, vulnerability doesn't mean you have to share everything with everyone. It's about discernment, knowing when and with whom to share your truth. Trust is a critical component of vulnerability, and it's okay to take your time to build that trust with others. The goal isn't to expose yourself recklessly but to create connections that are rooted in mutual respect and understanding. In moments of vulnerability, you may encounter rejection or misunderstanding. These experiences can sting, but they are not the end of the story. Each time you face these challenges, you build resilience. You learn that rejection doesn't define your worth, and you gain the strength to keep showing up as your authentic self. In family dynamics, vulnerability can be a powerful healing tool. Families are often shaped by unspoken expectations and unresolved conflicts. Vulnerability allows us to break those cycles by initiating honest conversations. It's not always easy to open up about pain or disappointment, especially with loved ones. But vulnerability creates the possibility for reconciliation and deeper understanding. Parents, in particular, can model vulnerability for their children by admitting when they've made mistakes or expressing their emotions openly. This not only strengthens the parent-child bond but also teaches children that it's okay to be imperfect. Vulnerability in parenting fosters an environment where children feel safe to express themselves and grow into emotionally intelligent adults. In romantic partnerships, vulnerability is the cornerstone of intimacy. True intimacy isn't just physical, it's emotional and spiritual. It's about sharing your fears, dreams, and insecurities with your partner and holding space for them to do the same. Vulnerability strengthens the foundation of a relationship, allowing it to weather the inevitable challenges of life. For individuals who are single, vulnerability plays an equally vital role. The process of dating can feel daunting, filled with fears of rejection or disappointment. But vulnerability allows you to approach relationships with openness and honesty. It helps you set boundaries, express your needs, and build connections that are based on mutual respect and understanding. In professional settings, vulnerability is increasingly recognized as a strength rather than a liability. Leaders who embrace vulnerability create cultures of trust and collaboration. Employees who feel safe to express their ideas or admit their challenges are more likely to contribute meaningfully to their teams. Vulnerability in the workplace paves the way for innovation, creativity, and shared success. Ultimately, vulnerability is about embracing the fullness of life. It's about experiencing joy without the fear of losing it, grieving without the fear of judgment, and loving without the fear of heartbreak. It's about standing in the truth of who you are and allowing others to see you in all your complexity. As you continue this journey, remember that vulnerability is not a destination but a practice. Each moment you choose to be real, you strengthen your connection to yourself and to those around you. Vulnerability is not just an act of courage, it's a way of life, and it has the power to transform everything it touches. Vulnerability is not just about being open, it's about being intentional with how you approach your emotions, relationships, and challenges. It's about understanding that while you can't control how others respond to your vulnerability, you can control how you show up in the world. And showing up authentically is one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself and to others. One of the less discussed aspects of vulnerability is how it intersects with courage. Being vulnerable doesn't mean you won't feel fear, it means you'll face it anyway. It takes courage to ask for help when you're overwhelmed, to say, "I don't know," when you're unsure, or to express love when you fear it might not be reciprocated. These small acts of courage, rooted in vulnerability, are what make us human. In relationships, vulnerability creates a foundation for empathy. When you share your struggles or insecurities, you allow others to see you for who you truly are. This authenticity fosters understanding and compassion, deepening your connection with the people around you. Vulnerability reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles and that others share similar fears, hopes, and dreams. However, being vulnerable also means acknowledging that not everyone will respond with kindness or understanding. Some people may not know how to handle your openness or may misuse it. This is where discernment comes in. Vulnerability isn't about baring your soul to everyone, it's about choosing the right people and moments to share your truth. When shared with those who respect and value it, vulnerability becomes a powerful tool for connection. In the workplace, vulnerability can be transformative. For decades, professionalism was equated with stoicism and detachment, but this mindset is shifting. Leaders who embrace vulnerability inspire their teams to do the same. When a leader admits their mistakes, it sets a tone of humility and growth. When they acknowledge challenges, it encourages problem-solving and collaboration. For employees, vulnerability might look like admitting when they're struggling with a task or asking for guidance. Far from being a sign of incompetence, these moments show a willingness to learn and grow. They also build trust among colleagues, creating a culture where people feel supported and valued. Vulnerability also plays a crucial role in creativity. To create is to put a piece of yourself into the world, a process that inherently involves risk. Whether you're writing, painting, performing, or starting a new business venture, vulnerability is the driving force behind innovation. It's the willingness to say, "This is what I've created. It may not be perfect, but it's mine." This openness not only fuels personal growth but also inspires others to take risks and express their own creativity. In parenting, vulnerability can break cycles of silence and misunderstanding. Many parents feel the pressure to appear perfect for their children, believing that admitting struggles will undermine their authority. But the opposite is often true. When parents show vulnerability, they model resilience and emotional intelligence. They teach their children that it's okay to make mistakes, to feel deeply, and to seek help when needed. For children, witnessing their parents' vulnerability creates a sense of safety. It shows them that they don't have to hide their emotions or pretend to have everything figured out. This openness fosters a deeper parent-child connection, paving the way for honest and supportive communication as they grow. On a societal level, vulnerability has the power to challenge stigma and foster understanding. When public figures share their struggles with mental health, addiction, or failure, it normalizes these experiences for others. It sends a powerful message that it's okay to seek help, to talk openly about pain, and to prioritize well-being. Vulnerability also dismantles the harmful notion of perfectionism. Many of us strive to meet unrealistic standards in our personal and professional lives, believing that anything less than perfection is failure. But perfectionism is a trap that keeps us stuck. Vulnerability reminds us that our worth isn't tied to our achievements or flaws, it's inherent. As you continue to embrace vulnerability, consider the ways it has already enriched your life. How has it deepened your relationships? How has it helped you navigate challenges? How has it allowed you to show up more fully as yourself? These reflections will serve as reminders of the power of vulnerability and the strength it takes to live authentically. Vulnerability is not a weakness to be avoided but a strength to be celebrated. It's the foundation of courage, connection, and creativity. By embracing vulnerability, you unlock the potential for a life that is not only authentic but also deeply fulfilling. Vulnerability invites us to embrace life as it is, not as we wish it to be. It teaches us that while we can't control every outcome, we can control how we respond to life's challenges. By choosing vulnerability, we align ourselves with truth and authenticity, qualities that lead to meaningful growth and fulfillment. One of the most overlooked aspects of vulnerability is how it teaches us to embrace failure. Failure is often stigmatized, seen as something to avoid at all costs. Yet, it is one of life's greatest teachers. When we view failure through the lens of vulnerability, it becomes less about defeat and more about discovery. We begin to ask, what can I learn from this, and how can I grow from this experience? Consider the inventors, entrepreneurs, and artists whose work has shaped our world. Their journeys are filled with failures, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But what sets them apart is their willingness to keep going. Vulnerability allowed them to accept failure as part of the process rather than a reflection of their worth. It gave them the courage to innovate, to take risks, and to pursue their vision. Vulnerability also empowers us to take responsibility for our lives. It's easier to blame external circumstances for our struggles, but vulnerability requires introspection. It asks us to look inward and acknowledge where we've fallen short or where we need to grow. This kind of self-awareness is not about self-criticism, it's about taking ownership of our actions and making changes that align with our values. In relationships, vulnerability fosters forgiveness. Holding on to grudges or resentment often stems from a fear of being hurt again. Vulnerability invites us to let go of that fear and to prioritize healing over pride. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning someone's actions, it means freeing yourself from the weight of anger and pain. It's a gift you give to yourself as much as to the other person. Vulnerability also enhances our capacity for gratitude. When we stop striving for perfection, we begin to appreciate life's imperfections. The messy, unplanned moments often hold the most beauty, a heartfelt conversation, a spontaneous act of kindness, or a lesson learned from a difficult experience. Vulnerability allows us to see these moments for what they are, opportunities for connection and growth. For those struggling with mental health, vulnerability can be a lifeline. Admitting that you're not okay takes immense courage, but it's the first step toward healing. Vulnerability creates a space where you can seek help, share your story, and begin to break the stigma surrounding mental health challenges. It reminds us that asking for help is not a sign of weakness but a testament to our strength. In the digital world, vulnerability is a powerful counterbalance to the curated perfection often presented on social media. When people share their struggles, failures, and authentic moments online, they create a ripple effect of honesty and connection. This openness inspires others to embrace their own stories and challenges the unrealistic standards perpetuated by comparison culture. Vulnerability also plays a vital role in leadership. Great leaders don't just inspire others through their successes, they inspire through their humanity. When leaders share their challenges and failures, they foster trust and loyalty. They show that it's okay to take risks, to fail, and to grow. This kind of leadership creates a culture of innovation and resilience, empowering teams to thrive. On a personal level, vulnerability teaches us to celebrate progress over perfection. Many of us hold ourselves to impossible standards, believing that we must have everything figured out to be worthy of success or happiness. Vulnerability challenges that notion by reminding us that growth is a journey. Each step, no matter how small, is a victory. As you reflect on the role of vulnerability in your life, consider how it has shaped your relationships, your goals, and your sense of self. How has it helped you connect with others? How has it allowed you to overcome challenges? These reflections are reminders of the strength and beauty that come from being real. Vulnerability is not just an action, it's a way of being. It's about showing up for life with courage, authenticity, and an open heart. It's about embracing the messiness of being human and finding strength in your imperfections. By choosing vulnerability, you choose a life that is rich, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. Vulnerability is the bridge that connects us to ourselves, to others, and to the world around us. It's a practice that requires courage and persistence, but the rewards are immeasurable. By embracing vulnerability, we step into our authentic selves, unburdened by the need for perfection or approval. In a world that often values strength as the ability to appear unshaken, vulnerability redefines what it means to be strong. True strength lies in being real, in admitting when we're scared, sharing when we're overwhelmed, and expressing when we love deeply. It's through these acts that we foster trust, build meaningful relationships, and create lives of purpose and connection. Vulnerability is not without its risks. We will face rejection, criticism, and misunderstanding along the way. But every time we choose vulnerability, we grow stronger, more resilient, and more attuned to what truly matters. It's not about avoiding discomfort, it's about finding the courage to walk through it and emerge on the other side, transformed. The value of vulnerability lies in its ability to heal, to inspire, and to connect. It's the antidote to isolation, the catalyst for creativity, and the foundation of love. When we dare to be vulnerable, we set ourselves free, free to live authentically, to experience joy, and to build connections that withstand the test of time. As you move forward in life, let vulnerability be your guide. Show up fully, even when it feels uncomfortable. Speak your truth, even when it feels risky. And embrace your imperfections, knowing they are what make you human. In doing so, you'll discover the strength, beauty, and freedom that come from being real. Vulnerability isn't just an act, it's a legacy. By choosing to live vulnerably, you inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect of authenticity and connection that extends far beyond your own life. It's a gift you give to yourself and to the world. So take the leap. Be vulnerable. Be real. And watch as the strength within you transforms your life and the lives of those around you.